Jessica.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the next thing that I was kind of I mean, if I'm okay with directing it a little bit, I was going to talk about the co-opting of a indigenous healing method, which was the hypnosis, and how it becomes culturally appropriated and whitewashed and commodified to meet capitalistic standards. So with indigenous healing practices, I was doing research on it because I didn't know where hypnosis came from. And indigenous peoples have been using hypnosis-like processes in, rituals and healing practices for thousands of years. But then some dude named Franz Anton Mesmer was Austrian, so he's white, so he gets to be like,
Germans.
I made it. And so, but one of the main issues, or I guess from my perspective that I see, is that this oftentimes for indigenous peoples, their healing practices and their rituals are a reason that white colonizers used to justify their colonization by saying you're savage, you're less than, look at all this weird stuff you're doing. This isn't how us like white British folks do things. So like clearly we're better than you. So then they would, part of colonization is cultural erasure. So in the US for indigenous peoples here from 1883 to like the late 70s, indigenous peoples were prohibited from practicing their cultural and religious beliefs and ceremonies and everything, their language, and were really forced to do like practice Christianity and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And so then for us, oftentimes what you'll see in this field is healing practices are kind of, again, decontextualized, stripped of their original ritualistic meanings, other things they're part of, like such as mindfulness and Buddhism or acceptance in Buddhism, and repackaged and then sold by white women. So
forefront.
So it's crazy. It's gone full circle, Spence.
It is.
So it was taken from one population. It was cleaned up of all the, dirty ass immigrants, Well, technically they was the originals, but the immigrants.
The immigrants that were here before. So.
Yes.
So you clean it up and you're like, oh man, it look good, man. You spray some perfume on it and shit, And then they're like, man, these white women gonna eat this meditation shit up, man. And then they start selling it because the shit works. And then, now people of color and indigenous people don't want to do this shit. Yeah. Because they're like, oh, that's what white people do, but the shit actually works and it came from your population. Ain't that some shit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also a problem where now we're getting to the point where we're banning and burning books again in certain states. And so even if we have the other side of things that are saying a different viewpoint,
or
those
the
are
origin.
Or the origin. Like it's going away. And so you can't even hear those voices again. And why would I want to try and create something different in this space if it's just going to be forgotten or gotten rid of? It's one of those things where it's just like you really are fighting against the tide, and it's sometimes you sink.
Yeah, so. It's like, oh, this fucking sucks. Yeah. So I didn't know that. I knew meditation, a lot of mindfulness is like an Eastern thing too, but it looks like a lot of indigenous folks were practicing it too. So there's a bunch of cultures were doing this stuff, but it gets sold and repackaged in a different way. And the funny thing is I see a lot of these counselors do it and they suck at it. They suck at doing the meditation. They suck at because they don't believe it and they don't use it. So then the clients can't fucking use it because they don't believe in it. But they'll put some videos out there of like doing all this deep breathing shit, but then they can't teach their clients because they don't actually know how to go through the actual visual and the sensory issues and actually do some of the pseudo hypnosis. Because you actually got to believe in the shit and you got to do it. It's tough. And then you got to put your one voice on, your ASMR voice, right? You gotta get in the mood.
What were you doing? When
Can you hear the raindrops? Yeah, can you hear the raindrops?
It was slowly happening. I can picture.
You're sunken now.
Oh God.
I'm glad that you brought that up, and then actually put some citations to like where its original source is from, which I did not know, which is kind of dope. I think we do this in a bunch of different ways in counseling and medical field too, though. We just take stuff.
Yeah.
Like, oh, look at this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's not saying like, oh, never use it, but like understand where understand where it came from and practice it from people who like have the full package of it, not just someone who kind of came up with it or found it 5 minutes ago and now they're the expert.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Research matters.
I feel like now that I know this, right, I can convince more people of color to do like, hey man, this is our folks.
Yeah.
It's our folks.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And also I do want to add on, like, yes, they also gave, like, they wanted to make sure that they would make sure that especially natives would be assimilated to the culture of religion, but they also gave them that, and then they also gave them liquor too, and then that also was a huge factor into dulling the minds of people who had never done this stuff before. And a lot of natives now are actually allergic to liquor. They still are. They have been. And it's interesting to also see the fact like they implemented not only religion and just culture wise, but they brought in booze and disease with that to really try to wipe out the people.
They wiped out a lot of stuff. They also, a lot of social workers in my field stole their kids and then gave them to white women for adoption. So I mean, there's a lot of reasons why this shit was sus back in the day, man. It's horrible.
And that still happens in places like where they will take it from, they will take children from indigenous people and give them to people, or even the schools up in Canada, where kids were brutalized. Were told that their parents didn't want them when they literally stole them from their parents. Yeah, wow. It's horrible. Wow, horrible.
Great film to watch. Killer of the Flower Moon, by the way. Great film.
Yeah.
I heard it was good.
Martin Scorsese. Great job.
Oh, I need to watch it then. Okay.
Yes.
I know I wanted to do, this is a real pivot, and then we'll get back to the subject she wanted to touch on.
Yes.
So I was watching, this is going to come off weird. So you're watching Dexter and the New Blood one, right, Spence? Have you seen the New Blood one?
Yeah.
So one of the hidden undertones, though, is the murder of all these indigenous women, and none of these fucking white cops care. It's been brought up recently in the last few years more and more and more, specifically some of the folks that are, queer too. Like, man, that's a story that I wanted to touch on. It's just people don't give a shit. But they look like Jessica. They be like, oh shit, we gotta save Jessica.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. I mean, there was that girl, a couple of years ago. Where was it? Her boyfriend, like they were camping or whatever, and then her boyfriend murdered her, and everyone was freaking out. And it's like, but what about all of the missing Black and brown kids all across the country? Like,
not good. All these indigenous women, though, it's like legit fucking terrible. I forgot, but homeboy at I think it was the Golden Globes, the dude from that Res Dogs, he had that redded thing on his face. Yeah. That was the first time I heard about it. And I'm like, that does make sense. That 100% makes sense. Let's keep it moving. What else did you want to touch on?
I think the next thing was the policing of people of the global majority. The field of mental health in this country, I should at least say, was created to weaponize, or was weaponized to create conditions for perpetual enslavement. Starting from like the 1840s, there was a census that came out and said that free Black people were 10 times more likely to be insane. And then in 1851, there was Samuel Cartwright with Drapetomania, how, this uncontrollable urge to be free. And then following the 13th Amendment, which was the abolition of slavery, in 1865, Virginia opened up the Central Lunatic Asylum for the colored insane, where they shipped or imprisoned thousands of Black people indiscriminately under the guise that they have mental health conditions or that they're insane because they're no longer enslaved. And treatment was always forced confinement and labor. So essentially, enslavement was the treatment for the Black people suffering enslavement.
Ain't that a bitch?
Yeah. Like, you're free. Never mind. Just get back over there.
You don't like being free. What you want to be is a slave. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Have you tried slavery?
You know what? I'm in shape.
In shape. You know, holy fuck.
Yeah. And throughout the 20th century, the Black women were sterilized at alarming rates due to things like eugenics and this idea of racial betterment. And also, you know, confined, and civil rights protesters who were institutionalized were given the diagnosis of protest psychosis, which fell under schizophrenia because they showed like agitation and weren't cooperative. And so that's
have you
kind
tried
of like
slavery?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to do it. Well,
you're going to prison
crazy.
And we're going to make it work. Hey,
exactly.
real quick. Real quick. Sorry. Shout out to all the firefighters out in California, 30% of which are inmates. So shout out to all the inmates sacrificing their lives for a country that probably doesn't even like them. So shout out to y'all.
Absolutely.
But yeah, this is some wild shit. Jessica, you learn all this in school? No, you had to learn this after school. This after school stuff.
No, this is this was never discussed in school. And this is like why I try to raise awareness, and like why I started the Instagram page to begin with, because I was like, people need to know this stuff. Like, our field is deeply problematic, and everyone just says, oh, just go to therapy. Like, therapy will heal you. And us as a field, if we're not talking about it, we're not, you know, unearthing all of these problems, getting to the root of the problem, and then moving forward productively. We silence any dissent and say, no, this is right. All these people benefit from it.
Wow. So it reminds me, right? This clip, Spence, this unconsensual thing, what they do with folks, they do it a lot with like court mandated stuff. They do it a lot with clients that are aggressive. They'll see that they're aggressive, right? White clinicians, some of my Asian counterparts, international Asian counterparts, they're like, oh, he was getting angry and aggressive, so we're gonna have him hospitalized. Hold up now, homeboy, good. Homeboy in my office and good. We don't call the police now. Everything was fine until you start fucking with him, and you pissed him off. Well, he's a danger to himself because he punched the wall. A lot of people punch the wall. He ain't gonna punch nobody else, right? He's not cutting himself. He's fine. And so it's crazy when I get these clients and they'll be agitated from the counselor. And then their first move is to like, I'm gonna have you institutionalized.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. Check out the full episode on our channel and anywhere you find podcasts. Also, remember to like and subscribe. Whoop whoop.